South Park is a television show that needs no introduction. For the uninitiated, South Park debuted in '97 and follows the exploits of 4 kids and their daily lives in the quaint mountain town they call home. Things are never quite as they seem, though, and their lives are hardly mundane. The series plays a lot on pop culture, real-life events, celebrities, and very little is sacred to the creators of the show. It should go without saying that if you're unfamiliar with the show or dislike the show in general, this game and its accompanying review is probably not for you. Don't worry, we'll see you next review. Stick of Truth is a direct sequel to the episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Season 17, but there are so many references to episodes, characters, and events all throughout the show's entire history that the more you're familiar with South Park, the more you'll enjoy the game. Stick of Truth is just one South Park game on a mountain of South Park games. The track record for these games aren't that great, so it's nice to see a game that has real effort put into it. Is Stick of Truth finally the good South Park game we've been waiting for, or will it just be another bad game to throw into the pile with the other bad games? Prepare your blades, we're storming the gates of South Park, the Stick of Truth. Stick of Truth is an RPG adventure that follows the New Kid, a mute character that's just moved to the town of South Park. At the beginning of the game, you can customize your protagonist's looks and give them a name, though this is a name that goes almost completely unused throughout the majority of the game. If you don't like the customization options available to you at the beginning of the game, you'll come across plenty of different items throughout the game you can wear to change how your protagonist looks. This game unabashedly takes from a lot of old school RPG conventions, and not just RPG video games. There's some elements of tabletop RPGs here as well. Not long into the game, you're given the option to choose your player's class: fighter, mage, thief, and Jew. I chose the mage class because I usually pick melee classes in RPGs, so I wanted to play something different that might be more of a challenge. Out of curiosity, I looked up what the Jew class did differently, and it turns out that it's a risk-reward class that gives you more power in correlation to your health levels and debuff stacks. If you're familiar with traditional RPGs, you can easily guess what the other classes are capable of. Another unique feature to Stick of Truth are patches, or strap-ons. These particular items can be slotted into equipment and weapons, giving them extra benefits and making them stronger and more flexible. You can remove these and put them on new pieces of equipment at any time, so when you settle on a set of weapons and armor you prefer, it's easy to slot patches into them and make them even more powerful. Even outside the game's equipment and aesthetic items, there's a lot of options, and finding a way to build your character to suit your preferred playstyle is surprisingly easy. I love to see this level of customization in RPGs, and wish more games in this genre would allow for this sort of flexibility. Combat itself is in a traditional turn-based style, and attacks and defenses of all kinds utilize timed button presses. Usually for attacks this means extra damage, and during defense you'll take less damage. The game tells you exactly when attacks are coming, or what to do when you're attacking. While it'll take a few tries to learn the timing of what you're trying to do, it doesn't take long to figure it out and memorize it, because there's consistency to each attack, defense, and ability. Almost every battle in the game is fought with 2 characters, the protagonist and a secondary fighter. The game's buddy system allows you to choose other characters in the South Park universe to be the second half of your duo. Usually one of South Park's other more notable kids like Butters, Kenny, Stan, or Kyle. While you can choose who you want to take into battle with you, I found it best to pick a buddy that complements your character. I stuck with Butters for most of the game playthrough because of his high damage, strong healing, and tank-like passive that made it more likely for enemies to attack him instead of my squishier mage. One of the more important items that can assist you during battles are summon items, which you can earn through side quests and are gone after one use. These items call on some of South Park's more eccentric characters to deliver devastating attacks on your enemies, and some of them are basically instant win buttons. Which is probably why you can't use them against bosses, and they're better saved for when a situation is getting especially hairy and you need a quick out. You can get extra of these summon items by talking to their originating characters after using their specific item. The town of South Park has been lovingly recreated into a game world, and you're basically let free to explore as you please barely 20 minutes into the game. You can't go everywhere and do everything, encouraging some story progression before a really thorough exploration, but much of what South Park has to offer is on display here and capable of being accessed. It's good to open up the game's fast travel points early on, so going to story-centric locations later aren't as much of a hassle. The game does have a little extra for you to do besides tackle the story. For example, savvy explorers will notice Chimpokomon, little action figures of creatures based on the series' parody of Pokemon. These can be collected, and there's 30 in total. If you intend to find them all, you want to be thorough because some of them can be permanently missed. Your reward for these are just achievements, so their importance depends on if you love hunting achievements. Another fun side quest is big game hunting with Jimbo. Jimbo sells you a hunting book, and when you find where to place unique items, you'll enter into combat with notorious monsters. These creatures are fairly strong and are basically considered optional boss battles. The rewards you get are powerful, so they're worth going out of your way for. In terms of graphics, Stick of Truth looks like it was ripped straight from an episode of South Park. The unique manner with which South Park is created from episode to episode was likely also used here. There are some instances of the game where cutscenes are so convincing that it looks like you're genuinely watching an episode. It's very faithful to the source material from start to finish and looks amazing. The only time I can say it doesn't is during the intro, where things seem a bit off. Still, if the intro is where the game falters in terms of faithfulness, there's really nothing to complain about here. The music is mostly unique to Stick of Truth, a sort of orchestrated soundtrack that would sound right at home in a Lord of the Rings movie. Some of them do have a touch of South Park added to them, like Cartman singing Latin vocals, but tear those out and you'd assume they were from a fantasy movie soundtrack. There is some diversity in the music here as well, as at an in-game farm, I heard music that sounded like it would be right at home at a Renaissance fair. Wandering into the emo kids area behind the school plays a sort of parody rock music sung by the series' voice actors that you'd expect emo kids might listen to. Fans of the series may also catch the occasional song unique to the show. Moving briefly into the voice acting, it's pretty clear that they got all the appropriate voice actors from the show into this project, which is a great thing because a game with budget voice acting wouldn't be nearly as good. When you see games based off of popular franchises, you tend to want to see their voice actors lend their talents to these games. Stick of Truth, in this case, would be completely devoid of life without the correct voices.
Homework! Okay, I've got all the doors sealed, and I've got hallway monitors working overtime. Nobody's gonna save your ass today, Craig, okay?
While Stick of Truth has a lot of great things going for it, it does have a few blemishes. For example, most traditional RPGs force your turn to end when you use consumable items, making utilizing them a very strategic choice. Stick of Truth flies in the face of these traditional mechanics by allowing you to use items each turn with no penalty. Once you've used your item, you're basically free to do anything you want to because it's still your turn. Combine this with the fact that consumable items are extremely common and you'll find that battles lack challenge. You can always change the difficulty at any time for a greater challenge, but the simultaneous item/attack in one turn should have been relegated to the easiest difficulty. On the topic of combat, I'd have loved to see more than 2 fighters at a time on the protagonist's side, and more enemies on the opposing side for larger battles. I feel like with so many protagonists in the buddy system, forcing you to only use one at a time was a missed opportunity, especially in a game genre where 3 fighters is pretty much tradition. I can't quite understand the decision making behind this because it doesn't seem like it's impossible for the game engine, but maybe it was done for simplicity's sake. Sometimes less is more. Not too far into the game, the protagonist will be taught how to utilize magical spells and gain a new mana bar. I assumed that it would fill naturally as I attacked or took damage, but neither of these were the case. I discovered that you had to use items in almost every instance to refill it. Having a little bit refill each turn as you participate in combat, with items as an option for faster mana gain, would have been better game design here, as it would have encouraged more use of the combat options associated with the mana bar. While it's easy to customize the new kid how you like, each of the buddies are completely separate entities with their own perks and abilities. I'd have much rather been able to customize these partners, seeing as you can only use one at a time, but this is just a nitpick because there's so many that it's not difficult to find ones that suit your class and situation. The game is spectacular to look at, but the novelty of running around and exploring South Park wears off fast. I found myself ignoring side quests after a handful of hours of gameplay in favor of story missions. This is not the best thing for an RPG, let alone a short one, with average total gameplay between 11 to 14 hours on a casual playthrough. This is actually the first game review I've done in a long time where I didn't have a long list of nitpicks and criticisms. To be honest, Stick of Truth is an excellent RPG with few major flaws, held back only by the fact that it caters exclusively to fans of the show. Therefore, when attempting to draw an audience, it casts a very small net as compared to other RPG series like Tales or Final Fantasy, and it shows in the sales numbers. Still, 1.6 billion copies sold is nothing to sneeze at, and I'd still call that a success. Stick of Truth is currently $30 on Steam. Seeing as how short the game is compared to more traditional RPGs, who usually clock in casual gameplays nearly 3 or 4 times that length, that's a tough sell. Most recent Steam sales have put Stick of Truth at around $7.50, which is an absolute steal for that price. If you're a fan of the show, don't have delicate sensibilities, and you don't absolutely loathe RPGs, I can confidently recommend this game to you at the discount price. It's almost Halloween. Take a break from carving your pumpkins and hit that subscribe button. Then prowl on over to social media to join us for more spooky fun. Links to my Twitter, Twitch, and Minds pages will be waiting for you in the description below. Scare you real soon.